Alright, hola all, welcome back yet again. Continuing directly off of the last video. Had that experience I told you about where I saw what I thought could be spirits of some kind. Of these things are, it's like they're a completely separate entity that's attached to a person. It's not so much like they are the person. So, I mean, but this lines up with what we get from people who talk about shit like that. And even mediums, like people who do channeling and shit like that. I don't like that. I feel that that's like, in most cases where people, maybe they write a book that they say was channeled, or they say things that they say are channeled. Pretty much I feel like that's passing the buck. Like they want to say something they feel is true. Or maybe they make shit up and they want to tell a story about, you know, like ancient fucking alien civilizations and shit like that. Which, I mean, that's not always bullshit. Of course, we know there were ancient alien civilizations and all that, but I mean, when people want to make shit up like like Scientology and shit like that, and they're going to channel their works, which is pretty much, in my mind, is like passing the buck, a way of diverting or delegating responsibility. Like, you know, I'm going to tell you this, but in case it's wrong, it was channeled from some other source, or you know, in case you want to ridicule it, it wasn't me, it was the source. I don't like that, and I think it's bullshit most of the time, but I'm not going to write it off entirely, because a lot of the time these people are right when they say these things. They're absolutely correct about things they shouldn't know, and now I'm going to go ahead and tell you how I personally have first-hand experience of this at the moment. Now, the second after the last time I told you, this last time that I did this, the extremity deprivation circumstances, I actually got stuck in this situation where I was out and about for a while, and I wound up going back home to my apartment, and what had happened was I was speaking to the girl that this new director that I was talking about on the telephone, and she was telling me about how she works with, you know, spirits and such, and then of course I'm taking it with a grain of salt. I'm not going to suggest that she's bullshitting. I mean, if she says she's doing this, then I'll allow her to present the evidence. You know, I'm not just going to flat out reject the idea of it, but like I said, I'm taking it with a grain of salt, and I'm just considering, well, you know, there could be all kinds of explanations for this if she's experiencing it, or what have you. And if you're watching this, madam, I'm not saying that I rejected your ideas or disbelieved you. It's not something that I'm experienced with, so it's not something I'm just going to take for granted. Now, while I'm talking to her, the conversation was going towards, I guess, a boyfriend of hers, like, being able to project through dreams and such, and be able to interact with people through his dreams, kind of like an astral projection scenario. And we started hearing weird statics and such on the line, and noises that, you know, didn't belong. We talk on the phone all the time, or we have been recently, so it's like, these were noises that we hadn't heard, and it was not normal. And so she considered or raised the idea that it could be him, like on the telephone. And I think maybe I initially suggested the idea that it could be him on the line, because an issue of jealousy over her talking to other people was raised, and you know, not that he was jealous, we were hypothesizing here about things that might be happening concerning their feelings and whatnot. And I hypothesized that perhaps he was actually listening in the phone call. Maybe he knew, and so I went and I spoke directly to these noises, saying, you know, I'm not here to you know, sneak in on your relationship or anything like that. We're just working together. We're just friends. And I was attempting to be fairly respectful to this in case it was him, because, I mean, we know that sort of thing can happen. It's not like, you know, that happens. So, I mean, I was absolutely believing that could very well be the case. But then I heard a voice talking back to me, a male voice, saying shit to me. I don't know what it said. I couldn't make it out. It was all chattery and such. but it spoke to me a few times and responded to what I was saying, and she said she couldn't hear it. So anyway, we go on in the night, and I go into the extremity deprivation circumstances the following night afterwards, and um, all manner of hell broke loose. Like when I finally got home, it was like every time I'd set something down, it would vanish. Like I dropped something a few times, things would like pull out of my hands and fly, not like fly across the room, but actually pull out of my hands and drop to the floor. And I could watch them drop to the floor and hit and reach for them, and they'd already be gone. And I wouldn't find them for hours and hours. My phone disappeared. Both of my phones disappeared, like vanished. When I finally found them, they were totally fucked up. Like all the apps were screwed up. It wouldn't receive phone calls. I got on the phone with another friend, another director girl who's working with the other project. Eventually, I finally got one of my phones to get a hold of her, and I asked her to call my other phone to help me. And when she called, I kept hearing it beeping. Like it would go straight to voicemail, but I would hear that voicemail beep on the phone somewhere in the room. And I couldn't find it. My room's a mess. I mean, I have trouble finding things, but it's not like where it actually turned out to be. It was right underneath the chair on the top. It wasn't like hidden at all when I finally found it. So it's like it just appeared there. I mean, I'd searched this area over and over and over again, and I kept hearing the voicemail beep in different areas in the room. And I'd go searching for it, and I'd ask her to ring it again. She'd ring it again, and the beep would be on the other side of the room. Now, I got really frustrated, as I tend to do, and I started bitching at myself, and I made a lot of noise, and so just that's a precap. I started getting pissed off, and I started talking to this whatever it was that was screwing with me, that was taking shit, and that was moving things around and pulling things out of my hands. And I got pissed off, and I threatened it, because I mean, I'm not fucking around. I practice casting. I've done projection. If there is such a thing as a spirit out there screwing with me, I'll get it. I'll take care of it. We know how to do that. But I haven't experienced, actual like spirits floating around before. I've seen creatures. I've dealt with dream creatures, projected entities, that sort of thing. But that all falls within the realm of DreamWorks. That's not something that I could say I've experienced here, like in the waking world. I've never seen a spirit or anything like that. So, as I said, I started bitching at it and threatening it, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And when I was on the phone with the other girl that I was talking about, I was asking her to ring shit. I was hearing that same crackling and static and noise again too. And eventually, it was like I got a response, but it wasn't like a voice. Like I couldn't hear a voice. And it wasn't exactly like thoughts coming into my head either. It was like. And I don't want to say it was like a feeling either, because I mean that's not descriptive of it either. It was just like I got a response, like I knew a response that something was speaking to me. And I thought, this is just bullshit, I'm tweaking out because I'm in the ether here, and I'm out of sorts, and this has been bugging me all night, so I'm just kind of, maybe I'm just freaking out. But it started saying to me, like I started talking to myself as it, for the most part, kind of like what you would say is channeling, what mediums would say is channeling. And the shit that I was saying is like stuff that I don't know, that I shouldn't know. And so that got my attention. Of course, I couldn't prove it at the time that this was actual things that, like, I don't know that I know this. It's just things that I'm not familiar with. But then, as I said, I was making the noise, and my neighbor bitched at me from downstairs. She started yelling at me. So I talked to her, and I told her what was going on, that I was having this trouble, and I'm sorry for making the noise. But then, this, whatever it is, something starts speaking to her, telling her things that I shouldn't know about her. And she's like losing it, because it's spot on. Like, I'm telling her shit, all kinds of things, and like I said, it's private. Most of the conversation was private to me or to her, so I'm not going to repeat it. But I mean, it was stuff that I shouldn't know, apparently, and from her, from what she said, stuff that nobody should really know. That this whatever it is speaking to her, like almost through me, I guess. So I'm getting these answers, and So I had a really long, lengthy conversation with this thing, and eventually it just kind of went away. But then I spoke with the initial girl, and she said the one from whom the thing may have came, and she said that, you know, it could have been like a guardian spirit that she has that felt I was disrespecting it in some way, which again, I was attempting to be as respectful as possible. I mean, I take these fucking things seriously. I'm not gonna fucking, except for, you know, in the case where I got mad at it, which that wasn't a joke either. I'm not fucking around, dude. Don't fucking come and steal shit from me. Don't fuck around with my home. I will fuck you up. I will find a way. In fact, that night, when I went to sleep, I went and I tried to project and find this thing out in my phantom body, but it had booked. It was gone. But at one point during the conversation, I actually spoke to it, and it was like, I said, so have you kind of like been here the whole time? Like speaking to one of these spirits. There was more than one of them. There were several things that I could feel were speaking, were communicating. And again, this is like premonitory or something, or not premonitory, but like I can't explain how the communication transpired. It wasn't a thought necessarily or a feeling. It was just there. And I'm communicating with this thing, and I can feel I can kind of like feel its presence, not like directly, not like tactile imaging, but I can sense its presence, and I can sense the presence of others. And I asked you, like, have you been here the whole time? And it's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, now at this point, it says, yeah, it's been here the whole time. Now it becomes a question of, like, the whole time when? Because it's not really suggested that these things, if there's something attached to people, almost like a parasitic thing, or just, you know, some kind of an attachment, a fragment that's attached to people or connected to people in some way, attached to their bodies, to their bodily life, but is not them, that is something else. It's not really suggested that it has to have been there from birth, right? It could have come any time. It could have come from anywhere. And from the way that the initial conversation went when I saw it in the hospital, when I saw the two things in the hospital, and the one was afraid to leave, it didn't know what was going to happen, that implies two things. A, it implies that not only are they not necessarily attached for life, because it seemed like they were attached to this person because they had to be. They felt they had to be. This was a shelter for them. I got the intense sense and idea that they were sheltering themselves from the storm of the ether. Like if they let go of this person, they'd be lost in the chaos and in the never for whoever knows how long, you know. And so they were holding on to this person for safety, which implies that they can leave anytime they want to. They don't necessarily have to be attached to a person for life. They don't have to have been there from birth. They could come from anywhere, anytime, and leave anytime. And at the same time, it also implies that they're not very well versed in this, not experienced, because she didn't know, or it didn't know what was going to happen to it when it left. It was scared. Maybe it like forgot what had happened the last time, or maybe that was the first time. Who knows? All I know is that was the experience I had, and again, this is due to extremity deprivation circumstances, so you can write it off as a fucking hallucination if you want to, but again, the first one has corroborating evidence. Both of them have corroborating evidence, because the second one, the thing with the neighbor, I was telling her shit she shouldn't know that's coming through me from this is kind of like a channeling thing. So that can be all bets are off at this point, because who the fuck knows? Maybe everything that people say about spirits and ghosts and all that could be true. I don't know. But it definitely opens up a new avenue of the investigation, because I had thought, you know, we could kind of cast that off as hogwash, that, you know, there aren't really ghosts haunting places, that maybe it's memory attached to the environment, or it could be some kind of an astral or entity or dream creature, figment. But I'd certainly not. Maybe we know that the phantom body, the person, the actual person, spirit, so to speak, is going to go off and do their own thing when the body dies. But this thing that's attached to them, this other thing, who the fuck knows what that does? And obviously it can travel from person to person. Obviously it can affect you physically in many different ways. So, yeah, that happened. So I mean, that's my testimony in regards to that so far, and we're gonna keep digging on that. Obviously, I'm not gonna want to like fuck around with the things too much because they steal shit. They get on my fucking nerves, and I had no way to find it, to do anything. I tried using wards, casting. I actually tried casting wards. Is something that any well-trained spotter is going to know how to do, you know, in the spur of the moment, just in case. And it didn't work. It's like this thing was ahead of me every step of the way, like moving faster than me. Every time I would do something to prevent it from moving, it had already made the next move. It was fucking humiliating. But, still though, I'm gonna stick to my guns. You don't fuck with me, don't steal my shit. I will find a way to get you. I don't care who or what you are, I will find a way to I'll gank your ass. One way or another. I've been through it, man. I've been through the shit. I ain't gonna take no shit from no wacky parasite spirit or whatever the fuck they are. Who knows? We have a few leads we've spoken to that suggest they might be what people refer to as being angels or even demons, but I don't know. Again, take that with a grain of salt. We're going to continue investigating. If anybody knows anything, if you got anything to say, tell me. Pitch in. This is, you know, this is good shit. This is weird. I haven't experienced this before particularly, so help me out here. Anyway, thank you for watching. Keelah Sly, Taerve, siari, Namaste.